Hey everyone, I'm Grant Durham with Durham Versatility Horses, and today I'm going to show you two things. First, how to tie a rope halter correctly, and also how to correctly do your cinch and keep all this stuff not being a mess here. The halter particularly is extremely important because if you tie this knot incorrectly, if a horse sits back on it, or let's say something gets caught, or for whatever reason, let's say this gets really loaded, if you tie this incorrectly, you'll have to cut the halter off. And I actually have been in situations where the horse was essentially suffocating on the halter and I had to come up, and in that case I had my knife and I just cut the lead rope. But if you have your halter tied correctly, you're able to untie this easily. So first I'm going to show you the correct and the incorrect way to do that. I'm also going to show you the correct way to do your cinch. And then at the end, if you stay tuned, we're going to actually take a halter and tie it between our truck and the tractor and load it really hard. And then we're going to show you that it can still be untied that way. So starting out, how to tie it correctly. It's pretty simple to tie it correctly. You just come down through the loop. So you've got this loop in the rope halter here. Come down through the loop. And then the important part is that you come around the bottom side like that. Now, if this gets loaded super, super hard, all you have to do is kind of flip this over. It's sort of like a locking mechanism. You flip that over and that loosens up this part and you can untie it. Not saying it won't be difficult, but it can be done. If you tie it incorrectly, and this is what a lot of people do wrong, is they come around the back, but they go up top instead of below. So see, the big difference here is you have this spoke coming across the top of their head, and you have this loop down here. In the wrong way to do it is coming around the spoke. Now, if that gets cinched down super, super tight, there's no way you're going to be able to untie that. So, like I said, that's the incorrect way. Down here is the correct way. Okay, so that's all there is to the halter. All right, now let's talk about cinches. So to start out with, just put your cinch through the ring from the back and then go through as many times as you need to until you have a manageable amount left. That might be a little bit long. I usually go through, actually that's probably about right there. That's about as much as I want left. Now, so this is what I see a lot of people do incorrectly. And most of the people I talk to just say that they were taught this way and they didn't know any different. So what a lot of people do is they leave this pin out, they don't use it at all, and then they come around, come up from the back, and back down. And then they pull that tight, and then that's all they do. Now, what they're doing here is they're relying on the tension or the friction in this knot to keep their cinch from coming loose. But it's really not going to work. If you ride very long, this knot's going to slip and it's going to start to loosen your cinch, which you don't want. So what I recommend doing, and the other thing about this that I don't like is when your foot is kind of center or even forward, you have this big bump that your leg's going to rest on. So you're not going to get the full feel of the horse, and it's just going to be real weird. So what I recommend doing is not doing that. Like I said, come through as many times as you need to. On your last wrap, get it about to where you want it in terms of tightness. It doesn't need to be super tight. You don't want to be cutting your horse in half. And then go through the pin with your last wrap, okay? Now, see how that pin's kind of loose right there? So I'm gonna back it off just a little bit by pulling on this under layer. So I'm gonna redo that.
Actually see it lock in place.
I'll pull it a little bit tighter. So you put the pin through. See how it's kind of loose right there? So I'm gonna pull right here until it locks into place. And then you may have to kind of pull one more layer so these layers all get even tension. Now, of course, that might be a little loose for me to actually ride with, but when I get out there and ready to ride, I may tighten it one more, put it through a notch, back it off. And now this cinch is not ever going to get looser than it is right now, unless the leather slightly stretches, which is okay. But it's not actually going to loosen up. I see a lot of people cutting their horse in half with the cinch. You really don't want to be doing that. If you want to get it pretty tight, pretty snug, put it through a hole and then back it off a little bit, and that's going to give your horse that little bit of breathing room that it needs.
You want to show us why it's tied on?
Sure. So if I was about to step on her right now, and it's kind of a feel thing, I would be totally comfortable getting on her like that. You can see I could probably squeeze 2 fingers that way. It's hard to see with her winter coat, but that's fine. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, if I have my cinch that loose, when I go to step on, my saddle is going to slip over. What that means is your saddle's not fitting correctly. If your saddle is contacting the horse down both sides of the bars right here like it ought to be, then your saddle's not going to slip very much when you get on. It might slip a little bit, but it's not going to slip a lot. If your saddle's you can't get on with your cinch that loose, that means you probably only have a couple of points on here touching your horse, and the rest of your saddle's not actually contacting, and that's going to create tons of problems. It's going to create pain, blisters, chiro issues, all kinds of issues with your horse. So if you can't ride with a comfortably loose cinch like that because your saddle's slipping too much, you really need to take a hard look at how your saddle's fitting. Think about it like your belt. If you wouldn't want to not be able to slide a couple fingers between your belt and your waist, that's probably about how that should feel right there. Okay, once you have your pin in there and everything's equal tension, what I like to do, this part's personal preference, but what I like to do from here is come back through that ring one more time and then go straight up to your keeper. Of course, different saddles are going to be different as far as what kind of keeper they have here. But using this system right here, you can see everything's much flatter. So my leg's going to have a lot more contact with my horse, and I don't have that one big hump right there. And most of my latigo is kept up nice and neat to the horse. Another way you could do this, you don't have to come through the ring here. You could go up straight to the keeper. And I see people do that a lot. But if you're riding through brush or anything that might catch it, you have more likelihood of this getting caught on something, pulling out, and now it's dangling down where the horse might step on it. So like I say, personal preference, but I've found the most clean way to do this is to come back through the ring one more time, up to your keeper, and if it's dangling further than that, it probably means you needed to take another wrap through your cinch ring here. Okay, so let's head out to the tractor and the truck. We're going to tie a halter between the two. We're going to load it, and then we're going to see if we can untie it still. All right, so what we got set up here is we have a rope halter tied off to our truck, and then this is tied the correct way. We're not going to show an incorrect one because we don't have a halter that we want to have to cut off and waste. So we're going to load it just to prove to you guys that you can untie a halter that's been loaded. I'm also going to explain real quick before we load this how to tie a good slip knot as if this was a hitch and post and that's your horse over there. So an easy way to do this is take a bite in the rope. A bite just means a loop in the rope like that. Put it over your rail or whatever you're going to tie to, and then make sure it comes across the long lead here, the lead that goes to your horse. Make sure you're coming across that, and then take the tail and just put it partially through, and then you can just keep daisy chaining from there. I'm just going to do one because I'm out of tail. So when you get to your last daisy chain, just pull it all the way through, and you don't even need to snug that up. If your horse doesn't sit back on it, it just stays just like that. When you're ready to untie them, pull the tail out, and your whole loop comes out. So that's an easy way to do it. Another way to do it is you can put the end of the rope all the way around what you're going to tie to, and then take a twist. So I've got my tail here and the line that's going to the horse here. I'm going to reach around the line that's going to the horse, and I'm going to twist the tail. And then from there, I'm just daisy chaining, putting it there. And then you keep daisy chaining until the last one you can pull the tail through. And that's a pretty snug way to do that. So I'm actually going to leave this knot in here. I'm going to get on the tractor. I'm going to tighten up this whole system. And then I'm going to show you that I can actually still undo my slip knot and still undo my halter. Okay, cool. You think that's as hard as a horse would have said it? Okay, all right, cool. Are you filming still? All right. Okay, so we just loaded this whole system. So now I'm going to show you how hopefully easy it actually is to untie this. So we basically just replicated if a horse sat back as he was tied to a rail. Okay, I'm gonna take the tail out of the little slip knot there. So I'm gonna try just pulling first and see if it works. Yeah, pretty easy. Okay, now the horse end of the thing, we had this rope halter tied correctly. So like I said, the first thing that you're gonna do here to untie this is take this piece that goes right across here. It's the only part of the whole knot that has only one strand across it. And that's basically your unlocking bar. So I'm gonna take that and kind of roll it over this way. And you can see right there how loose this piece got. Now, you just run a little bit of that through and the whole thing comes apart super easily. So that's why you tie a rope halter correctly. If we had done this with it tied around the top part of the spoke, the only option we would have had would be to cut it with a knife, which all horsemen should have knives on them at all times. But in case you don't, make sure you tie your rope halters correctly. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you got something out of that.